Of course, everybody knows you can root Japanese maple in spring. But can you also root them over winter? That's what I thought last year, and last year I took those cuttings, I put them aside and I decided to plant them up. Now let's see how I fared and the end result at the end of the video. Spoiler alert. Yeah, it does work. You can do it. Follow along, do it yourself, and then next year you might have arakawa maples rooted in spring. How cool is that? It is early October and we are only a week or 2, 3 away from all my maples changing color fully, starting to drop their leaves, and that's a perfect time for wiring and pruning back. Now what do you do with the prunings? Now for rooting these I only need very little material. Of course I need a pair of sharp scissors, I need a pot, and this is a pot with many holes but small holes. I have vermiculite, I have regular substrate, fine, and I have regular substrate a little bit coarser. The little bit coarser substrate goes in the bottom of the pot to avoid the finer substrate falling through the holes. Just to save me a lot of time making a mesh. Right? So then once I have that in there, I just fill the pot up about half with the finer substrate. Just like that. Then easy peasy, fill up the rest of the pot with vermiculite. This will keep a nice aerated substrate, yet at the same time keeps the cuttings nice and moist. Now having done that, all we need to do is prepare the cuttings for planting. And now I look at these branches that I cut off and I say this is all growth from the last 1 or 2 years, and I'm going to clip it right below a node. You see there's a tiny little bud sitting. I actually don't need the bud, but just below the point where normally the buds come up, I'm just going to clip it off. This is my first cutting. It has nice and healthy buds here at the end. I'll remove this because this will just start to rot. And for the rest it is healthy growth of 1 or maybe 2 years old, and I'm planting this as deep as I can in the substrate. So this is at least half of the cutting is now in the soil, and I'll do that for a whole bunch of cuttings. Again, I look for a place where it is young growth right below a split or a bud, and this is my cutting. It goes into the pot as deep as I can. This will ensure that the branch stays nice and hydrated during the rest of winter. And that is what we want, because I'm not putting any hormones on here. I'm just planting it as is, and then I'm going to keep this frost free. This is going to sit in a windowsill in my garage, just waiting for spring to come. And what will happen during that time? The ends here will start to callus over. They will not start to root until spring really hits. So in spring, once the branches start to grow, that's when the roots start to appear. So until that time, they just need to stay moist, frost-free, and just store them somewhere bright, not in full sun, not in the wind. Anything that can dehydrate them, stop that from happening. What you also want to do is make sure there's multiple nodes on the cutting itself. So with that, pretty much all the cuttings have been planted. I'm going to water this now, put it in the garage, out of the wind, out of the sun, but bright, until early spring. I'm going to keep them frost free, and as soon as I see that these buds are pushing and starting to open, I'm going to plant the whole thing in a Ziploc bag to avoid the cuttings drying out in the first stage of spring, because these will only callus over winter. In early spring, once they start to push, that's when the roots start to appear. So the first 2 months of spring are critical for these survivals. It's only February, but look here. The buds are starting to swell here on these cuttings. So as said, I'm going to treat them now as regular spring cuttings, and I'm going to put them in a plastic baggie, because last year they dried out, and maybe by wrapping them in a plastic baggie, I'll get better success. If you watch more of my videos, you might have seen one that I've done with Xavier. I'll pop a link down below on rooting winter cuttings, and that was not all that successful. But now if I look at this one, these arakawa midwinter cuttings, They still have leaves. They're still green. It's April. I don't see any roots appearing yet, but I think I'm going to put them in a little bit more light. See whether they really want to pop and start growing. That'd be cool. Right, middle of May. These have pushed growth in spring. That of course doesn't mean that they actually did grow roots. But look at that. This is time to start opening up the baggie a little bit. This is now just to check on them. I'll give them a bit of a watering. You can see they have been quite humid, so there's a little bit of fungal development. I'm actually going to take out here these that have clearly died, gently, without disturbing the rest. So these have died, they are turned completely black. Can take those out with gentle tug. But there's lots and lots of fresh growth still on the rest. This actually does look promising. Let's water them, put them back in the baggie, and then just give them another couple of weeks. I'm leaving the baggie open slightly now to reduce the fungal infections and to slowly get these to get used to the drier environment outside of the baggie. Still green? Still green. Not growing yet, but happy and healthy. So this baggie goes even further open. Look, the longest day is behind us. Means we're in the middle of summer. And what I'm noticing here is some active regrowth. And I'm seeing some buds starting to swell. So for me that is a sign that some of these actually are starting to grow. And to be honest, I'm curious, but I also want to get this pot separated, and there's still a couple of weeks for them to regrow, so I'm going to just plant them up in individual containers. That is, if they have rooted. This is the moment of truth. That is looking really good. There's a little root there. This one is dead. This one is dead. This one is rooted. This one has rooted. And a little dead one on the side. Something with leaves here. And roots. And that's just a loose leaf. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 rooted arakawa Japanese maple cuttings from winter cuttings. So this proves, yes, you can grow arakawa from winter cuttings. So if you are pruning your bonsai in the middle of winter, keep cuttings. There's so much garbage in this. And quickly before signing off, just wanted to show that these arakawa cuttings are indeed still alive. They've started to push. Well, actually 2 out of 4 have started to push. But yeah, all of them survived the transplant. We're now the first week of August, almost the first week of August. The first weeds are starting to pop up. So there you have it. 1, 2, 3, 4 rooted cuttings of Japanese maple arakawa. Taken in winter, rooted in spring, and now I'll let them grow for the summer. I'll release this video though somewhere before winter, so you know that yes, in winter it is possible to take cuttings as you are working on your arakawa maple. Now, what did I tell you? Was that easy or was it easy? These are 2 of the 4 rooted cuttings. You see they have grown a little bit, but not that enthusiastically. I expect them to really start growing next year. 2 of them have already moved on to a new house. These, people just love them. They're looking for arakawa on their own roots. So I get rid of these within a couple of weeks again, and then next year And then over winter, I'll probably do the same thing, root another bunch of those. This was Jelle, growing bonsai with rooting arakawa cuttings in winter.